All right, the camera's rolling. Very good. A reminder to our people who are watching this at home that if you haven't already subscribed, please do. We have beat our 100 subscriber limit, so now we can, or minimum, so now we can begin looking into live streaming again once high holidays are over. But if you also have not yet subscribed to the Temple Israel channel, we will be doing more programming through the Temple Israel channel as well. So please make sure you've subscribed to both my channel and the Temple Israel channel. The Temple Israel channel is listed on mine as well, so it shouldn't be too hard to find. Good. With that public service announcement out of the way, we now get to the other big public service announcement, which is Deuteronomy. In many ways, the book of Deuteronomy is Moses' last attempt to provide the PSA, the public service announcement, to the nation of Israel. It's the just one more thing before I have to go, in this case, to meet his maker. And he's trying to cram everything in. And we've seen over the last many weeks that a lot of it is, well, hard and harsh. Those of you who followed along with the reading of the curses would have perhaps become disturbed at some of the tragedies that were foretold that would occur to our people. The blood, the gore, the devastation, the sadness, the tragedy. It wasn't a happy discussion. And even the recap of the commandments might have seemed a little bit intimidating, might have seemed a little bit oppressive. I mean, after all, there are rules that come, in the book of Deuteronomy, one after the other. You know, don't wear this, don't eat that, make sure you do this, celebrate here, don't marry this person, make sure you treat the captive like this. It's just law after law after law, and it can make the burden of Torah seem burdensome, or perhaps at least insurmountable, as though it was impossible for us to live up to this massive obligation. Which is probably one of the reasons why there is, yes, a lot of threats that if you fail to live up, that bad things will happen. It's the idea that that will encourage people to try harder. But also there is a great deal of promise, a great deal of praise. So we're going to look at more of that latter section, more of the positive side of keeping Torah today. And we're going to start in Parashat Nitzavim in chapter 30. So Deuteronomy chapter 30. Verse 1. And while people are flipping pages, I'm just going to shut the door so we can gather a bit more air conditioning. It is on, right? Good. All right, so we've just gone through in chapter 29 yet again another foretelling of doom, despair, destruction if we were to violate the covenant, if we were to ignore Torah. And hopefully you read that on your own, but we're gonna look at the more positive side. So who'd like to read something a little bit more uplifting? If you're willing to volunteer.
Okay. When all these things befall you, the blessing and the curse that I have set before you, and you take them to heart against the various nations to which the Lord your God has banished you, and you return to the Lord your God, and you and your children heed his command with all your heart and soul, just as I enjoin upon you this day.
Pause. So we've started off with, all right, after all of this horribleness happens, here comes the good stuff. And this is a very important reminder, especially as we stand at the threshold of a new year, that yes, there is going to be bad stuff. And yes, some of it is going to be self-earned. But God never says that when the bad stuff happens, that's it, you're gone, I'm writing you off. Wow. And you will never be able to return to me again. Instead, we immediately shift to the language of reconciliation. That bad stuff's going to happen, but then one day, you and your children will return to me. You will heed my commands again, no matter how far scattered and dispersed you are. And when we return to God, this is what's going to happen. Keep going.
Then the Lord your God will restore your fortunes and take you back in love. He will bring you together again from all the peoples where the Lord your God has scattered you. Even if your outcasts are at the ends of the world, from there the Lord your God will gather you, from there he will fetch you, and the Lord your God will bring you to the land that your fathers possessed, and you shall possess it. And he will make you more prosperous and more numerous than your fathers.
Okay. Not bad, right? It sounds good. So that there, yes, is going to be a period of national catastrophe, and there will be a period of national redemption. And that period will be even better than it was prior to the catastrophe. Things will be good. Now, what would, if you were being a cynical reader, what would your lingering worry be at this point? You've read all of the curses that happen because of our disobedience and failing to follow Torah. We know that we will be scattered, we will eventually return to God and the commands, and then things will be good again. And if I was going to be a pessimist,
It might swing back.
yeah, well, what's to stop us from doing it again? Right? Okay, fine. We're going to be cast out, we will return to God, and God will return us to the land. And what's to say it's not just going to happen all over again? We're just going to disobey, we're just going to break the commandments, we're just going to become a wretched nation once more. And, well, then the whole cycle of destruction and catastrophe is going to begin again, right? Wrong.
Then the Lord your God will open up your heart and the hearts of your offspring to love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul, in order that you may live.
All right. So there's going to be a very important step in this restoration. And we'll talk about this in more detail once we've finished our preliminary reading, of creating a different set of circumstances within us that will prevent the same level of depravity and rejection of Torah that led to all the catastrophes in the past.
The Lord your God will inflict all those curses upon the enemies and foes who persecuted you. You, however, will again heed the Lord and obey all his commandments that I enjoin upon you this day. And the Lord your God will grant you abounding prosperity in all your undertakings, in the issue of your womb, the offspring of your cattle, and the produce of your soil. For the Lord will again delight in your well-being, as he did in that of your fathers. Since you will be heeding the Lord your God and keeping his commandments and laws that are recorded in this book of the teaching, once you return to the Lord your God with all your heart and soul. Surely this is...
All right. Oh, sorry, just pause there. So, what's the deal? What's the promise?
Everything's going to be okay.
It's going to be okay. And why is it going to be okay?
Because you get to trust in him.
Well, because we're trusting God, and that will lead us to... What's that? Obedience. That'll lead us to actually fulfilling the instructions of Torah. Remember, God did not just give us Torah so we would do what God said. God gave us Torah for our benefit. It wasn't, we may not act like it, but it wasn't just that God liked telling us what to do. It was God giving us a set of instructions so that we could actually put our world together, put our own lives together, assemble them correctly, so that we would actually have a stable piece of life furniture afterwards, to not stretch the IKEA metaphor too far. And that means that we will enjoy the blessings once we've actually returned, and that there will be an additional support, perhaps, to make sure there's this continuing idea that God is going to be helping us, and that we will be wholehearted, heart and soul, as it says over and over again, in our commitment to Torah. Sound good? Sound plausible? I mean, who here thinks that it is plausible? I'm not saying possible, because we don't want to rule anything out, but who here thinks it's plausible that the entirety of the Jewish nation, let's even leave the rest of the world out for a moment, that the entirety of the Jewish nation at some point would all simultaneously be doing what Torah says? I'm not saying that there wouldn't still be disagreements about what Torah says and all of that. I'm just saying that each in their own way would be committed, heart and soul, to living a life of Torah. Who here thinks that it's plausible that that could ever occur at one time? For those of you who are watching from the video camera, I'm not seeing a lot of hands. Yes?
For one thing, Torah can't be kept totally individually. It has to be kept.
But certainly has to be kept in a community, yes. That there are many of the mitzvot that we don't have the capacity as an individual to observe, but only as a community can observe. Absolutely. So does that make us feel better? Or are you saying that because there's a community responsibility, it's even less likely that we would all be doing it? Because I may be able to get on okay myself with Torah, but there's no way I'm getting on with you and the Torah at the same time. I'm only one thing at a time. It does seem a little difficult to believe, and that's a very sad statement about our faith in each other, that it is much weaker than our faith in God. That we might be able to believe in a miracle, but we certainly don't believe in our neighbor. But God is going to try and take care of that through the words that Moses is saying. Hopefully we'll find a little bit more reassurance and hope, and perhaps courage even, by the time we're done.
Surely this instruction which I enjoin upon you this day is not too baffling for you, nor is it beyond reach. It is not in the heavens that you should say, who among us can go up to the heavens and get it for us, and impart it to us that we may observe it. Neither is it beyond the sea that you should say, who among us can cross to the other side of the sea and get it for us and impart it to us that we may observe it. No, the thing is very close to you in your mouth and in your heart to observe it.
Okay. Right? So just as you might be despairing of, we honestly think everyone's going to be doing Torah. I know people. People are not going to be able to live up to Torah. People are not going to be able to do it. They're not going to be able to understand it. And even if they were, in quote, trying, which sometimes I think people are trying more than they are trying, I'm lacking in optimism here. And yet Moses comes back and says, but don't think Torah is so hard. Don't think Torah is something you're not capable of doing. And when he says you, he means you. Don't think that you can't live a life according to Torah. You can. And don't think that the Torah is somehow incomplete, that you need more pieces and you need someone else to go get it for you, or someone to go on a great voyage to get it for you. You've already got it. All that's left is doing it. Convinced?
We become very complacent.
What's that?
We as individuals, just kind of roll along and become complacent about life.
Well, we become complacent about life, and in particular, become complacent about Torah. I think partly because, sorry, get that handout going around. I think partly because we reach a certain level of spiritual exertion that we are comfortable attaining. And once we reach that level, we realize that doing more is going to take more. And since we don't feel spiritually empty, we're okay. It's sort of the equivalent of, imagine if you were driving in your car and your gas tank is at a quarter tank. Well, if it says a quarter tank, and you know you don't have far to go, are you going to stop at the gas station? Chances are not, right? And if it always read quarter tank, because someone secretly was coming in every night and putting a little more gas in your tank, and it always stayed at quarter tank, you'd never feel the need to get more. It would be good enough. It would get me where I need to go. And for many people, I think Torah and Judaism in general reaches a certain point in their life, if they're lucky, and if they've done a little bit, at least in the preparation department as a youngster or as a young adult, it gets good enough. They're not miserable. They have a solid enough general understanding of morality and of what Judaism asks of us that it's okay. And doing more, well, I'm not sure that I'm capable, or I'm not sure that I'm ready for doing more. And so people leave it at a quarter tank. And this parasha and many of the texts that we're going to be looking at, I think is very much designed to shake us out of that complacency. Not by threatening us with curses, but by inspiring us with an understanding of what we are capable of that we often miss. So, yes.
Yeah, just a comment from my own experience and observations. Even when you're living a full Torah lifestyle, you get complacent.
Absolutely, absolutely, because you reach a certain plateau constantly of, this is what's good enough. I mean, the same thing happens in relationships. The same thing happens in business or your job, where you reach a certain level where you're comfortable with what's happening and you become complacent with it. And unless there is either internal motivation or external motivation, we tend to carry on as we were the day before. And certainly once that becomes a pattern of a few years, then the inertia becomes very powerful.
And we'll also tell you that complacency is an art. You don't stay at a plateau. There's no good that ever comes from doing what you do every day. You always end up
which is,
evolving.
as our sages say, one that does not increase their knowledge or understanding decreases it. But it's a false sense of security, that quarter tank, that you may feel like you're doing okay, but in fact you are getting less and less than you actually should be. Exactly. Okay, so let's see what we can do to shake us from our complacency as this new year is about to begin. Do I have a volunteer? Again, this is more uplifting stuff, so don't feel like you're going to be reading something depressing or sad. Edie, you're looking at me expectantly.
I'm waiting for somebody else to step up.
They're all too complacent because they know you'll do it.
Somebody will do it. This, what the verses above talk about the attainability of Torah,
Meaning the fact that the Torah is near to you, it's not in heaven, it's not across the sea.
is what is stated by the verse in Proverbs. Wisdom is as unattainable to a fool as corals. He opens not his mouth in the gate. What is meant by wisdom is as unattainable to a fool as corals.
All right, so there's this quote in Proverbs that says wisdom is as unattainable, or it's implied that it's unattainable to fools as coral, meaning they're not going to get it. They're not going to access those riches of wisdom. And the Midrash is trying to connect that with our verse here. And we're going to do it with actually a couple different ways. So just say a few different rabbis are going to present their drush, their exposition of the combination of fools and coral and the fact that Torah is not up in heaven, across the sea, or unattainable. So let's see the first rabbi's attempt.
Rabbi Tonkel said, "This is the fool who enters the synagogue and sees those who are involved in the give and take of Talmud, and he does not know what they are saying and is embarrassed. As it states, he opens not his mouth in the gate."
All right, so someone comes in and he sees people who are studying. Talmud is used as a general statement here, not as the specific book, but as a general statement for broad Torah study that involves give and take between other people. And as he's listening to them going on and saying, well, what about this and what about this, or there's an objection from this person and such, he's like, whoa, what are they doing? What are they talking about? There's technical jargon thrown in here. There's all sorts of obscure references. It is just blue. And so what does he do? He's embarrassed that he can't join in. He's embarrassed that he doesn't understand or know. And he keeps his mouth shut. I know that may be counter to the Western ideal of, if you are stupid, you should keep your mouth shut. The idea that a wise man, keeps his mouth shut unless he thought a fool, or unless he opened his mouth and remove all doubt that he's a fool. So we tell people, speak no evil, keep your mouth shut if you don't know what you're talking about, don't talk in front of your betters. Western society, we love telling stupid people to shut up. In Judaism, we're saying it's this person who shuts up, that's stupid. How do you know a fool is the person who's not willing to engage with something they don't understand, who's not willing to get into it and start learning. And the only way to learn is by actually opening your mouth. And that embarrassment leads to silence, not to stupid comments. So it's a bit back to front to what we're used to in our pop culture in the West, but in my opinion, a much more truer statement of what it means to be a fool or to be wise. And just in case you're wondering how in the world they're making a connection between this statement of keeping your mouth shut in the gate and everything else, how do we know that? Well,
And the word gate is a reference to the Sanhedrin,
which was the Jewish court.
as it states in Deuteronomy. And if the man like not to take his brother's wife, then his brother's wife shall go up to the gate and the elders and say, my husband's brother refuseth, to rise up and to raise up and unto his brother a name in Israel.
Sorry for the archaic English.
He will not perform the duty of a husband's brother unto me.
So Levirate marriage, as we've talked about before, just a few chapters ago, uses the term of the woman dragging the brother-in-law to the gate where this proclamation is made. And the Midrash is simply pointing out that their gate clearly means in front of the council, in front of the elders, in front of the court. So here too, when it says the fool won't open his mouth in the gate, it must be speaking about a similar scenario of talking in front of people that are discussing halakha, discussing Torah, discussing law. Make sense? Good. Number 2.
Another explanation, the rabbi said, this fool enters the synagogue and sees them involved in Torah, and he says to them.
So notice we got a little bit different. Right, we're progressing here. We got the fool who comes in, doesn't understand what's going on, so he keeps his mouth shut. All right, that's one scenario. Next one, the guy comes in, sees them involved, doesn't quite understand what's going on, so he has a question.
How does one learn Torah in the first place?
Okay, you guys are all engaged in this study and back and forth and arguing and all that. Maybe I want to join in. Maybe I'd like to do some too. So where do you start?
They say to him, first he reads in Megillah, then in the Sefer Torah, then in Nevi'im, prophets, and then in Ketuvim, writings. Once he finishes the written Torah, he learns the Talmud, and after that halakha, laws, and after that agadot, homiletic and narrative interpretations of Torah. When he hears this, he says in his heart, when will I learn all of this? And turns from the gate. This is what is written, in the gates he does not open his mouth.
So he comes in, he asks, they say, okay, fine, yeah, here's a syllabus. You know, start with Megillah, it's a simpler text, then move on to Torah, then move on to the Nevi'im and Ketuvim, and when you get that down, then we start working on the oral Torah, and the halakha, and then all the Agadah, which is a bit more esoteric and philosophical. The guy's like, what are these? I gotta learn all of that? And so he shuts his mouth and walks away. But, I mean, can you blame him? Isn't that a tall order?
Certainly sounds overwhelming.
It certainly sounds overwhelming, but the next paragraph will hopefully show you how the rabbis counter that attitude.
Rabbi Yanai said, to what is this matter comparable? To a loaf of bread which is suspended in the air.
All right, let's make sure we understand here, because the text is a little bit brief, but you have a loaf of bread hanging from something, so it's off the ground. All right, it's off the ground, seemingly out of reach. Got the picture? Okay, keep going.
The fool says, who is able to bring it?
Well, it's hanging from up there. Well, there's no way to get that. That's the attitude, right? But?
And the rational man says, did not someone suspend it there? He brings a ladder or a pole and brings it down.
Okay, so we'll pause that before they do the nimshal, before they show the moral. We'll make sure we understand the parable. So the fool looks up, sees the thing hanging from the ceiling. He'd dearly love to get it, but it's out of reach. How in the world can anyone get that? No one can get that. Look at it. It's like 20 feet off the ground. You imagine you walk into our sanctuary and there's a big sack of money hanging from the ceiling. You go, oh, I really like that money, but it's way up there. I mean, nobody can get that. But the clever person, the rational person, the thinking person says,
Somebody must have put it there.
somebody put it there. It didn't get up there by itself. So if someone put it up there, I just have to figure out how they did that, and then I can get it down. And that means that our moral is going to be,
So too, he who is foolish says, when will I read all the Torah? And he who is rational, what does he do? He learns a single parak, chapter, every day until he finishes the entirety of Torah.
which wouldn't take very long. So the rational person, when he sees someone else who has wisdom, who has knowledge, who has understanding that he or she would like to also have, when they see the syllabus, when they see the list of everything that needs to be learned to be the equal, or at least be able to join in the conversation as a more equal participant, doesn't say, I can learn all of this, but instead says, okay, I'll start on line 1, and I'll do a little bit, and then I'll do a little bit more, and I'll do a little bit more, and eventually I'll get there. Because after all, the person I saw doing it, that I either admired or was impressed or just overawed by how much they knew or did, they started somewhere else. They weren't born with that knowledge. And if the knowledge has been put into them, if the bread was hung by someone, it can be got down by someone. It can be brought down by me too. That everything that we see that impresses us about Torah study or about Torah scholars is reproducible by each and every one of us. Now, it's not identical. Yes, there are people with gifts and talents, undeniably. But the core of Torah that we need, as we saw in chapter 30, is attainable by everyone. You may not become the most famous sermonizer. You may not become the person who writes the newest and most engaging commentary on the Torah. But to understand Torah and to participate in its study and its use, you don't have to be a genius. You just have to roll up the sleeves and start where you start. We'll have to have you sit somewhere else next time if you're catching all the allergies there from the plastic trees.
It's all the pollen on them.
It's all the pollen on the plastic trees. Okay. So
says Hashem, it is not too incredible for you. That is, it is not too hard. And if it is too hard, it is from you.
It is. Go ahead. Sorry.
It is from you that you are not involving yourself in it.
From Midrash Rabbah. Okay, so if you look very carefully back on verse 11 in chapter 30, this is an oddity of Hebrew grammar, which doesn't play nice with English. So I'll try and point out how the rabbis are making this midrash. It says, no miflet hi mimcha, which would probably mean, in the most basic meaning, it's not too incredible, too wondrous, too baffling for you, which means, it's not too bad. But mimcha, as the comparative form in Hebrew, could also be deliberately read as being from you. The mem prefix also means means from, not just more than. It's not only the comparison. So that's an oddity of Hebrew grammar, that the same preposition is both the comparison as well as the word from. And so the rabbis are reading it as the second version, as the word from, meaning if you think it's too hard, that's from you that makes it too hard. That means it's your choice to approach it as though it is impossible. It's not that the Torah itself is too hard. Does that make sense? See how we're playing with the words there? Okay? But it really hinges on how we approach that word incredible. If you look at the Torah and you say, that's incredible, you can either say, that is so incredible, there's no way I can ever connect to this or use it or learn it. Or you can say, that's so incredible, I want to be a part of it. When you see something incredible or amazing, like when you watch the Olympics, you see people doing, quadruple backflips off of balance beams, you can either say, that is unbelievable that any human being could ever do that, and applaud, and then sit back. Or you can say, I may not be able to do that and get a gold medal, but people can do that? I'm going to go take a gymnastics course at the local gym. Or I'm going to go, try and get in better shape so that I can have my body do more incredible things than I'm currently doing by sitting here on the sofa watching the Olympics. We can either be inspired by someone else's greatness or by the greatness of something we encounter, like Torah, or we can be dismayed. And which do you think our tradition says we should respond with? We should try. We should be inspired. But we're not done inspiring yet. Okay? This is the big push before Rosh Hashanah. So we're going to be heavy in the inspiration today. So anyone like to pick up for eating? And now that we've guilted people into trying to try reading the next section.
I'll do.
Thank you. Thank you.
That you should not say that to understand Torah, and to learn it requires the achieving of Ruach HaKodesh, holy inspiration, as the generation of the wilderness attained. For from the heavens God spoke with them.
All right, so when we say that the Torah is not too wondrous, too baffling, too incredible for you, we are trying to rule out the idea that, well, sure, if I had Ruach HaKodesh, if I had divine inspiration, then I could understand it. So what the commentary is doing is saying, you may think that it's not a question of intellectual ability. After all, most of us don't like to think of ourselves as fools. We like to think of ourselves as being rational and reasonable people, but I might still imagine that I can't learn Torah because I lack the right spirit. I lack the right divine assistance. The God hasn't given me a boost spiritually and personally in order to be able to enter into the Torah world, and I'm left at that mundane level. I lack Ruach HaKodesh. I lack this holy inspiration. But, where we are, there.
And there are as well many mitzvot which were commanded of old, because they attained Ruach HaKodesh when they were upon the sea. As they, the sages, said, a maidservant saw upon the sea more than Ezekiel
Yeah.
and the prophets saw.
Okay, so you might think that because after all the sages did teach that the most common of people, the term being used here for that is a stand-in is the maidservant, who stood upon the sea, saw more than Ezekiel ever saw. Now, why would Ezekiel be used as the contrast?
He had some strange vision.
Because he had some amazing vision. We'll edit the word strange into amazing. That he saw, the chariot of God, or the angels with the four faces and the wheels. I mean, he saw things that most of the prophets, whether they saw them or not, were incapable of describing in such detail as he did. And so you might think that's the pinnacle of the vision of God, and they're saying, no, with Ruach HaKodesh, with the Spirit, if God wanted to, even the most common of people could see more than that. And then you might think, well, okay, so if I don't have that Spirit, then I'm not going to see nothing. And that means I'm off the hook. I can't learn, can't study, can't be expected to do more than I'm doing because God didn't stick that in me. No, the Torah is not too wondrous for you, for one who is like you, for one like you who maybe doesn't have divine inspiration. The Torah is still for you and everyone else too, regardless of where they are in that spiritual ladder. Onward.
Or you might say that it is dependent upon mazalot, planetary influence.
And by the way, for those of you that say mazel tov, when you say mazel, the word mazel doesn't actually mean luck, literally. It means star sign, like a constellation, like astrology type star signs.
Okay.
So when you say mazel tov, you're basically saying, may it be an auspicious occasion for you that the stars are in alignment at this moment, is what the implication is. We've generalized that, we've sanitized it and turned it into just generally good luck, or congratulations even. But here it's being used in its more literal, original sense, which is you might think that your learning or success in learning is completely dependent upon mazel, completely dependent upon the fortunes of the stars, rather than your own efforts. So,
For Shabbat 156a, mazel makes one wise. And this is, it is not in heaven.
meaning the reason why it specifically said the Torah is not in heaven is trying to rule out this idea that my Torah accomplishments are written in the sky. And if it writes that I should be a scholar, then I'll be a scholar, and if it writes that I shouldn't, then I won't. No, that's not possible, because the Torah itself says Torah is not in heaven, meaning your success in Torah is not determined by your star sign. It doesn't matter that you're a Sagittarius, you can still be a Torah scholar.
And also, we are in Chutz La'aretz,
Which is the diaspora.
which is called Medinat Hayam, nation of the sea, as is stated in the Talmud in Gittin.
Mm-hmm.
You could say that Torah is only understood in Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, where the air makes one wise, and this is over the sea.
All right, so we have a teaching that the air in the land of Israel is special, that just living in the land of Israel makes one wise, just by breathing the air. And certainly those of you who have had the blessing to visit the land of Israel may have noticed there is something in the air. There is something special about being there. But that's no excuse when you don't live in the land of Israel. If you say, oh, if I lived in the land of Israel, I could breathe in that wise-making air, and then I could be a scholar. But here, living in Orlando, the air is not filled with that same wise-causing gas, and therefore I will remain an idiot. Shucks. But
And this tells us that it is not so, but rather in every place, all is in the hands of mankind. And understand this.
to understand this is whenever a commentator finishes with that, it is always trying to say, think on this carefully. What I just said is very, very important. And they don't say that after everything, but he's trying to say, so when it told you in the Torah that the Torah is not over the sea, that you would say, who would go and get it for us? It's trying to say you can learn Torah anywhere, even if you don't live in Israel. You can still learn. Torah is attainable, it is accessible by everyone, in every place. Straightforward? All right, we're marching through. All right, so what do we do with this? So, okay, maybe, I hope, you're feeling a little more upbeat about your possibility of learning more Torah even still. And remember, you're already the people who make time to come and study, but there's still more to be learned. There's still more that can be done. But how do you keep it going? How do you keep that optimism, that enthusiasm going? Come to services, because we sing about it every single week. Did you know that we sang about the fact that Torah is attainable by everyone every week? No, because we sing that in, well, technically Aramaic, and it's a good congregational melody. And I've discovered that anything that has a good congregational melody, anything that most people know how to sing, people have no idea what the English actually says. The stuff they don't know how to sing, then they're looking at the English to try and figure out what in the world everyone else is singing. But if they can sing along in, as I said, it's technically Aramaic, then they don't bother looking at the English. And so the sounds come out, but the meaning doesn't always penetrate. So now, as part of my devious plan, we are going to take a look at something we sing every single week and sing well, but perhaps don't fully understand. And if we understand it better today, maybe week in, week out as you sing it, it will reinforce this notion. So we have someone else who would like to try. And a big thanks to Penelope for modernizing the language of this. I only had this in a King James type English. She updated it for us. So you don't even have to worry about the these and thous and assurisiths and all of those kinds of things. Come on, one more volunteer. I want to see a little bit more willingness. Thank you.
Blessed be the name of the sovereign of the universe.
All right, so how many people now know where we are in the service? Right, so we have just finished the opening page, page 312, of the Torah service. We have opened up the Ark, but we have not taken the Sefer Torah out. We have the visualization of where we are in the service, and the Siddur that we use. This is on page 316. And we do the opening line, the Barich Shemei Demarei Alma, and then we continue privately. And by privately, I know for many people that means waiting until the singing starts. But it is supposed to be a time of personal reflection and petition, which should become immediately apparent as we see the content of this statement. Keep going.
Blessed be your crown and your abiding place. Let your favor rest with your people of Israel forever. Show them the redemption of your right hand in your holy Torah, your holy temple. Vouchsafe unto us the benign gift of your light, and in mercy accept our supplications. May it be your will to prolong our life and well-being. Let me also be numbered among the righteous, so that you may be merciful unto me and have me in your keeping, and all that belong to me and to your people Israel.
All right, so at this unique moment with the Ark open and the Torah just about ready to be brought out, when we are trying to get ourselves in the proper spiritual frame of mind for receiving Torah this day, we are also taking the opportunity to make a petition and saying, we are about to receive Torah, and please God, take care of us. Please God, consider us well. But we're going to get a little more specific as we go.
You are he that feeds and sustains all. You are he that rules over all. You are he that rules over kings, for dominion is yours. I am the servant of the Holy One, blessed be he, before whom and before whose glorious law I prostrate myself at all times.
Okay, so prostrate is not just an organ of the body. Prostrate means to bow down, right? And historically, that meant to actually lay prone on the ground, and the ultimate example, the ultimate posture of submissiveness to another force. And we bow to, according to the prayer.
Not in man do I
I'm making sure we understood what we just said. Who do we say we prostrate to? Who do we bow to?
God
And
His law.
and His law. Okay, it's an unusual combination because almost uniquely we mention that we are bowing before Torah here. Almost always we reference our bowing solely to God, and indeed there are some people who dislike this passage because of this almost dual nature of what we're bowing to. It does seem to be elevating Torah almost as though it was a object worthy of worship as opposed to veneration, which are two very distinct attitudes. But what it's trying to drive home here is that by bowing before God, it means that we bow before Torah. You can't do one without the other. Or more specifically, you could bow before Torah and not God. There are many people who live an observant life without the Spirit. But to truly understand what it means to serve God, you must be connected to Torah. You must shape your life. You must bow before Torah. You must yield to what Torah instructs. And again, that doesn't mean blind obedience. Remember we said at the very beginning, it's only the fool that keeps his mouth shut when talking about Torah. You're supposed to be talking. That's how you learn and now you become wise. But it does mean that Torah has to be guiding your life. And as such, we're going to rule out a few other options.
Not in man do I put my trust, nor upon any angel do I rely, but upon the God of heaven, who is the God of truth, and whose law is truth, and whose prophets are prophets of truth, and who abounds in deeds of goodness and truth.
All right. And as such, bowing only before God and the vehicle of Torah for God's wisdom, I am really now bowing before, being connected to, what are the other options? People, any other human being, or angels. I need no intermediary. I can stand in the presence of the king. I can receive the king's law. I don't need someone else to tell me what the king wants. I don't need someone else to stand between me and the king and take my petition to the king. I am in the king's inner circle. I am in the king's courtroom. Many of us, when we deal with other issues in our life, we like having an intermediary. Right? You wouldn't go into court without a lawyer because you want your lawyer to represent your interests because you believe the lawyer will do a better job than you would when talking to the judge or presenting it to the jury if that was the case. But this is saying no. When it comes to standing before God, we rely and we appeal directly to God. And we need no intermediary, neither human nor angel, nor other divine being. We don't need to say, may the angel Michael or Gabriel or whatever appeal to God on my behalf. No. You want to talk to God? Talk to God. You want to know God? Know God. You want to understand God's Torah? Do it yourself. Don't think you can either abdicate or take a shortcut, or that you're not worthy of doing the direct job yourself. All that's left then is trying to get one last favor to make this actually work. And this is the part we sing at the very end.
In him do I put my trust, and unto his holy and glorious name I utter praises.
Be'anaraches, Elish Mekadish. I see everybody knows it. And that's what we're translating right in here. Be'anaraches.
May it be your will to open my heart unto your law, and to fulfill the wishes of my heart, and of the hearts of all your people Israel, for good, for life, and for peace.
And this is actually taken from the Zohar, taken from the Kabbalistic texts of the 13th century. So what is the final petition that we have in here that is relevant specifically to our connection to Torah? That comes back to our Torah portion, chapter 30.
may it be your will to help me learn. Okay.
Exactly. All I'm asking is that you open my heart. I'm not asking you to do anything else for me. Oh, I want you to do all the good stuff for me too, yes. But when it comes to Torah and my connection to you, just open my heart. Just help me scrape away all those emotional, spiritual, and other barriers that prevent me from trying to reach out to you wholeheartedly, that keep me hesitant or keep me plagued with self-doubt or of misunderstandings or of other feelings that prevent me from really trying to connect to you through Torah. Just open it up, and I'll do the rest. I need help with that because sometimes we're blind to those barriers we put up. But everything else, I'm there. Everything else is up to me. Make sense? Maybe? Okay. One last romantic portrayal of our relationship with Torah. Maybe you didn't realize that our connection to Torah is actually quite seductive. It is actually quite romantic. So, would anyone like to read a little romance? It's a lot better than those trashy romance novels that you see out there. So, yes.
Come and see the way of the Torah. At first, when she begins to reveal herself to a person for a split second, she gives him a little hint. If he picks up on it, fine.
So, let's make sure we got the picture here. The Torah is this beautiful woman, and there's a man that she is interested in. And so she gives him a wink. She gives him a little toss of the hair. She flirts to show and to try and create interest in him. And if he picks up on it, good, on to the next stage. On the other hand,
if he does not understand, she sends her messengers to him saying, tell that simpleton to come here so that I may speak with him.
Idiot, I'm trying to get your attention. Come on, let's talk a little bit.
This is the meaning of the verse. Oh, tell the simpleton lacking brains, turn in him. He is brought close to her. She begins to speak with him from behind a curtain. She speaks in the language of his own thoughts until he starts to understand little by little. This is the level of Dereshah. All
right, so to use the romantic metaphor first, so she is talking to him, but it's a very modest and proper society that the Zohar is describing. And so, of course, they wouldn't just be alone face to face in the room together, because that would just be. Instead, she's in one section and she's behind a curtain, and he's in the other section. And when she first starts talking to him, she doesn't leap to discuss the most intimate of things. She speaks to him where he is at, and she tries to talk to him in language that will help him understand her, but it's through this curtain, through this veil. That means it's not a perfect understanding, it's not a perfect picture, but it's enough to get him properly prepared to understand more.
Then she speaks to him from behind a thin veil. She speaks in enigmatic parables. This is the level of Haggadah.
So it's a little bit more revealed. It's a little bit less of a barrier between her and him, between Torah and our understanding and our spirit, but it's still being transmitted slightly through things that are obscuring the deepest, most intimate secrets.
After he becomes accustomed to her, she reveals herself to him face to face, speaking with him of her most concealed mysteries, all the concealed paths which have been hidden in her bosom from ancient days. She said, do you remember the hint I gave you back at the very beginning of your search? Do you see how many secrets were embedded in what I have said? Do you see how all this fits together now?
So she reminds him, once they have finally become intimate, once they've finally been able to talk face to face, and once she can talk to him in a way that he will understand her most deepest secrets, she says, remember how I sent you that note way back in the beginning? Well, do you see now how in that note, all of my secrets were there? They were implied in the words, in the way that I wrote it. Yeah, it wasn't obvious to you at the time. You were kind of stupid. But it was all there, ready to be unpacked. And now that you've had time to grow, to understand better, because I've helped you along, now you can truly understand what I've been saying from the beginning. Now you can truly see my secrets. Now you can truly take part in this most deep understanding of what I am. And this is the way Torah talks to us, and through Torah, this is the way God talks to us. That yes, sometimes the Torah may seem to be very superficial at times, talking about mundane things, talking about things that are not inspiring in and of themselves. You know, it's easy, thankfully, to get excited about the praises of our nation or of the world. It's easy to get excited about the call to justice. Getting excited about the difference between wearing something that has wool and linen mixed in it or not takes a different level of understanding. But when you get there, you look back at that rather superficial statement and realize that within it lies secrets. And the fact that you couldn't see them at first may be disappointing. It may make you think the bread is stuck up on the roof and I can't get it, and no one could. But with time, with practice, and with the desire, you can have it. It's been given to you. That's what chapter 30 is telling you. You don't have to wait for someone else to bring it to you. You don't have to wait for the next edition to be printed. You don't have to wonder whether you are capable. You don't need to wait for divine inspiration. Everybody right now has the capacity to understand Torah right now. And when you start now, you will know more by tomorrow. And in a year you will know more, and in 10 years you will know more, and eventually you will be able to look back, and even the things you thought you knew, you will be discovering new secrets in. Just as it should be in a good relationship. But you gotta answer the call. When Torah sends you that love note and says, come visit me, you have to take the hint. She's into you. You know, Torah digs you. She likes you. Respond. And you will find her the most beautiful and beloved of companions. Take care, everyone. Keep studying. Next week, as it is the beginning of Rosh Hashanah, we will not be having class, but I think we will be seeing each other quite a bit anyway. So hopefully everyone will have a wonderful new year. Shana Tova.
Thank you.